Hello everyone, this is Mr.MonsterConnoisseur, and this is part 9 of Special Education. This is the final part, and so without further ado, let's begin. October 11th, 2047, 6 years ago. I started the TV broadcast as reporters and news outlets tried to get a clearer picture of the scene. The perspective kept shifting rapidly from an aerial view to a ground-level broadcast with words I didn't bother paying attention to as I already knew the story. All of them which being centered on a house in my neighborhood, a house that I've passed a dozen times in my life. This house was the home of some kid who decided a few days ago he wanted to run away and become a wizard. Despite that myth being disproven countless times, the authorities caught up to him, dropped him off in his house with his family, given him a grace period that lasted 15 minutes ago. Now it's a free-for-all for all the unmarried populations of this whole goddamn city. Monogamous girls and harems alike trying to claim him. And yet, despite knowing how the story begins, how it will end, I kept watching, and I know exactly why. It's the fate that awaits me after all. Might as well get a good look while I still can. September 24th, 2053, 12 a.m. present. Kitchen, hurry! I heard Maria's voice echo I heard Maria's voice echo out of my phone. As I heard the distant pounding of the struggle ensue upstairs, the sounds of said struggle were soon masked and blended in as more and more noises began to flood the house, with fists banging on doors and windows shattering, causing my youngest sister to cry in fear, let out a small sigh. This was going to be a long fucking 10 minutes. Assuming Riley would even be able to recover by then. Sounds of various crashes and cries echoed throughout my phone, eliciting whines from everyone around me, including myself. Seemingly at the same time, I heard an unfamiliar voice shout out, "Where is he?" from both my phone and from upstairs. Presumably towards one of my sisters. Any shred of hope I had at this point was dwindling quickly. Suddenly felt two arms quickly wrap around me from behind to pull me into Riley's torso. I didn't struggle, not that it would only make things worse at this point. My embrace tightened as I noticed her arms begin to glow radiantly. As she began whispering some arcane incantation. I guess the heat of the situation has given her the energy she needed. I found myself focusing on my 3 other siblings in the room with us, who were transfixed with the display. A sudden banging on the basement door along with shouting that seemed to roughly resemble the phrase, "He's down here!" that followed, broke them and me out of said transfixation. It only made Riley tighten her grip around me as the banging continued. My mother, clearly in a struggle. A small part of me wished I could just go up there and beat their asses, but I know that's not how the world works anymore. I could tell the door was about to give, and I didn't know where exactly my siblings were in that moment, as the only things I heard emanating from my phone were loud footsteps, bangs, and crashes, coded in a plethora of voices, all aggravated and demanding. The incantation seemed to finish, and I can see and feel the world turning brighter as Riley squeezed me tightly. I could hear the door finally give out, but I was in no state of mind to be able to properly react to it as I began to hear footsteps descend the basement stairs. I never got to witness them reach the bottom before the world seemingly disappeared before my eyes. It took me a while to fully snap out of whatever daze I was in, and be fully conscious enough to be aware that I was lying down, face up, towards a wooden ceiling. I began to move, taking things slow at first, as my mind slowly began to return to me. I turned my head, allowing myself a view of a window that beheld nothing but wilderness. The sun shone through, being filtered by a somewhat dense canopy, as it illuminated the floor of this place, which was also made of wood. Must be some sort of cabin. I sat up finally, looking around, checking to see if anyone was in the room with me, before I slowly withdrew my legs from under the covers, twisted them away from the bed I was in, looked around, examining a small nightstand with a rustic lamp on it, an antique dresser facing the other side of the bed, as well as the door in the corner of the room, furthest away from the window. On the nightstand was an envelope with my name on it in my mother's handwriting. I slowly took it, examining the package before unsealing it and revealing the card inside. It was a birthday card. On it was a typical lewd 18th birthday joke that's so damn common in today's society, as well as a written congratulation from my mother. I pushed myself off the bed slowly, beginning to walk towards the door. My hand eventually reached the doorknob, and I twisted it slowly before pushing it forward, revealing the hallway that it guarded. Apprehensive, I began to step forward, reaching a side door. I paused in front of it, debating whether I should open it, before curiosity ended up winning that debate, and I did. It led to a bathroom. I continued forward, eventually reaching another door towards the end of the hallway, and this time it led to a room with a carpet, a hanging ceiling fan, and a light with letters and numbers suspended off of it. A bunch of shelves with children's toys and a crib stationed along the far wall of the room. Common practice among monsters to set up a room for an incoming child, even if they know there won't be any on the way. Some refer to it as the grieving room. Murmur. I closed the door and reached the end of the hall. There was just some stairs going downward. Figuring there wasn't anything better to do, I started to make my way downstairs, slowly revealing a large space that seemed to act as some sort of living room, with a few sets of furniture angled towards the TV. On the other side of the room was a small sliver of space separated by a half wall, which connected to the support beam. I advanced towards it, keeping my eye out for the person who brought me to this place. Moving past the border of the wall, I found a corridor leading to the kitchen on one end, what appears to be the main entrance on the other. I began walking towards the entrance, finding myself in an indoor porch that contained the door which led outside. Still apprehensive, once again grasped the doorknob, only finding that I didn't turn. It was locked. Already trying to run away? The voice caused me to jump, quickly turning to face its source. I saw Riley, now fully healed from the knife wound. The clothing she was wearing gave me a pretty good visual of it. Among other things, I calmed down and began to speak. "Where am I?" "You're in my home," she responded. And why exactly am I in your home?" I asked, although I probably knew the answer already. "Well, Charlie, simply put, it's the farthest location from any human or monster settlements that I know of. They won't find you here." I grunted with this response. "Why even bother? We both know you could have just taken me screaming and gotten over with it." "I already answered that question, Charlie," she responded half sarcastically. "You wouldn't be happy about it." "Well, I'm certainly not happy about this," I responded, slumping against the wall that my back happened to find. "And is there anything you can think of that does make you happy?" she asked. "Being alone," I responded. "And what exactly do you do if you're alone?" she asked me, raising her voice as I did so. "I don't know. Daydream, I guess," I responded casually. "Daydream about what?" "Daydream about not having to deal with this shit." My response caused a slight giggle from Riley, before she quickly brought her cool back. "And tell me, Charlie, what's exactly the source of this shit you speak of?" she inquired, getting closer to me. I knew where this was going. Let me guess. Me? I said begrudgingly. She put an arm around me and wrapped her tail around my... Charlie, that woman did awful things to you. Things that both submissives and doms alike would find repulsive. Yeah, I butted in. To the teacher who told me I was lucky because of it. She looked at me in concern before responding. The only kind of person who would say such a thing like that is someone living in denial. They know deep down how awful it is that you went through what you went through. And can you be sure about that? I asked. Charlie, I've read lots of minds, from the most timid bunny to the most aggressive hellhound, and people who say shit like that usually do it to build their own fake wall of confidence, a wall made of nothing but guilt and insecurity. It's a common misfortune among monster psychology. So, if you can read into people like that, and surely you know exactly when I need to be happy then, right? I do. What you need is for you to know what will make you happy. Well, I already do. It's called being alone, I said as I backed out of her touch. That's not what I meant. Being alone causes you to fantasize, which is what led you down your path in the first place when you decided to run away. The whole reason you like being alone is because it allows you to most easily immerse yourself in a world where you were never abused, without having to deal with the faces people put on when someone gets caught talking to their self. You got so lost in that you never begin to take the first step in moving on. Well, it's not like those damn therapists help. She frowned, lamenting. I suppose having that woman who looked an awful lot like your kindergarten teacher rope you didn't exactly fix anything, did it? I didn't start. Neither did she. I sighed before picking up the dialogue. So, what the hell am I supposed to do now? I asked. How exactly do I take these so-called first steps towards recovery? She looked at me solemnly before answering with a hug. You need time, she said. Lots of time and care. And I know you won't act like it at first. And the first 3 days will probably be painful for the both of us. Just know that the ends will always justify the means. I butted in again. She sighed, looking at the ground before looking back at me. You got a lot on your mind, she said. It needs to come out, Charlie. You know I'm right. I chuckled before responding. Of course I do. She shot a weird look at me with this response. You're always right. You're alone, after all. Alones know it all. They're right, I'm not. That's how it works. I began to laugh again, just like that time back in the woods. Man, I just wish I could be right in knowing that denial is the only thing that can ever make me happy again. Right? And staying in my room and daydreaming until I'm a fucking rotten corpse. But you know it all. And I know nothing. That's why I'm here, after all. It's why I can't be left the fuck alone. That's why I can't understand any of this. That's why I'll never be fucking happy again. My laughter died out. Once again, I began to get angry, but something was different this time. All I fucking wanted was to be happy again, Riley. That's all I fucking wanted. Don't you understand? I paused for a moment. Of course you do. You're fucking alone. How can anybody understand but you? Guess I'm just so fucking lucky you found me, huh? Maybe that teacher was right. Maybe I'm the luckiest guy in the fucking planet after all. I'm gonna sniffle. Why did you do this to me? Why did I even do this to myself? Why do you keep fucking hugging me? I said as my voice began to falter. She wrapped her arms and legs around me. I fell backward into the bed. I woke up in sudden teleportation, having gone completely unnoticed by my crying mess. Between sniffles and sobs, I managed to utter a single word. Why? I repeated this word over and over, both out loud and in my mind. Story versions of my family, my abuser, and my general past flooded my mind as I continued to cry within her arms. As I felt myself begin to overcome with the fatigue, I drifted out of confidence within her arms. I stared at my dad as he chuckled, tapping the stake into the ground with his hammer. He let out a brief sigh, having just finished raising and setting up the tent. I looked towards the cliff. I always loved coming out here, especially as a kid. Me and my brother, just the two of us, he said, as I watched him stare at the moons hovering beyond the cliff. I remember the summer before they came. I began to have dreams about this weird woman who was going to come after me. That woman turned out to be your mother. He laughed, turning to face me. As he looked at me, his laughter died down, and his face mirrored mine. I figured you'd use a break from everything, he told me, with his face more solemn than he usually lets show. I continued staring at him, my emotions having gone numb. I wish I was there to help you out of this mess, and to throw that woman over the edge of the cliff while I'm at it, he said to me, before getting him and walking towards the edge of the cliff. I followed him. But I guess that's life, he said, staring out at the moon. You just lose sometimes. Lose enough that you stop caring about anything else. Lose enough that your only purpose becomes trying to get it back. Lose enough that you don't really care about whether you succeed in getting it back or not. He paused, turned to face me, and uttered, "And look at what you've lost." I looked down at the bottom of the cliff, and I saw my perfect corpse lying peacefully with closed eyes. I knew what it was, of course. The part of yourself isn't coming back, Charlie. You lost it the very day you were defiled. He stopped for a moment. Taking a drink of ink out of a beer can I didn't realize he was holding. But you could always try to make something better. He looked at me and smiled. It's just a thought, he added, before sighing and tossing the empty beer can to the side. He cleared his throat. Anyways, I should probably go. My brother's waiting for me after all, he stated before he jumped off the cliff, as I always knew he would, leaving me behind as I lost him too. Watched as he fell. I heard his laughter as he disappeared before he hit the ground. I turned around, only to be greeted by Riley, staring at me with a warm disposition. I watched as she approached me, standing her hand towards me, beckoning me to take it silently. I took one last look towards the cliff, that place I was all too familiar with. The place I've been stuck at for what feels like my whole life at this point. With some hesitation, I turned around, took her hand, and she took mine. We smiled at each other as we began to run towards the edge, and we laughed because I became aware of how beautifully pointless my struggle was. We jumped as we heard the voices of everyone in my life cheer us on. And even if that was just for a moment, we were finally free. I awoke within her embrace this time. As I began to stir, she looked at me and asked a question. How do you feel? I looked back at her, my face disheveled and my voice weary, and I responded, I don't really know. I paused for a moment before continuing further. I just feel lost and somewhat regretful. It's almost like something in my head is preventing me from being able to tell it properly. What kind of thing is that? She asked, an emotion that I felt briefly while I was asleep. One I haven't felt in a long time, I said. Riley nodded and responded with just 2 words. Go on. Well, this is the end of special education. This is by user 970_ on Reddit. I really like the story. I mean, it does other things. And, I'll probably just, as I just release these chapters daily, I'll put the links in the description, so, yeah, I've recorded 6 and 7 in one sitting, and now I'm recording 8 and 9 in another sitting. So yeah, there's that. So, yeah. Anyways, the next, the second part of the DOTR compilation is gonna be released soon, and I'll be working on a Christmas. I'm gonna be working on a Christmas Kappa video, and then I don't know, maybe after that, I think I'll do a Lone Partisan Part 2. So, yeah. Alright, guys, without any further ado, goodbye. This is Mr.MonsterConnoisseur. Goodbye.